Some questions from the audience, so you have a microphone there, please. If you don't mind to introduce yourself, that will be great.
Thank you to this distinguished panel. My name is Jamar Montgomery. Hello, Teresa. Um, AI weapons are already here. Let's be honest. We have already been utilizing algorithms for our weapon systems, and to think that AI is not being utilized in warfare does us all a disservice. So if we're going to have AI being utilized for good, my question is to industry, it has to start with children. If we are not educating our children on AI, then the most usage that we're going to get from AI is through warfare. Why does OpenAI have partnerships with the United States government? Because the United States government and the United States military has the largest budget, profit-making enterprises. So my question to industry is, how are you going to make sure that our children are properly educated so that they can be the new creators of AI and the new tools that we're going to use for society?
Can't go off TikTok for all the children. That's as simple as that.
They are just there, you know.
So I think it actually goes back to this multidisciplinary approach in some ways, which is we actually need the humanities in the development of the technology to keep, ethics front and center, history, literature, philosophy, maybe religion, I don't know. But I think we need to, I think there's a real value in bringing humanities into the development of technology, and we actually kind of do educate our kids on that. I have 15 and 17-year-old daughters, so we spend a lot of time talking about that. I do think we need to think about, computer science or whatever the next version of technology education for sure. But my sense is you're not going to need as much of that in the future. I'm not sure if I'm right. I should turn to one of the professors who thinks about education.
No, I'm not a professor. I'll give it to the real experts, but I'll just say real quick, I think it goes back to an all-in approach and a little bit of what you said and probably what he's going to say. But, keep in mind, we have and I'm sure every corporate here has the same thing. We have a CSR program. We have education programs. Even at our highest scale, we educate maybe a million people worldwide over a year or 2 year period, something like that. There are something like 5 billion children in the world. So we're a drop in the ocean. And if you add the 10 million that Microsoft does, we're still just a drop in the ocean. So it's got to be an all-in approach. But I'm interested to hear the question to Jose.
Yeah, I mentioned some of it, but I think AI education and data education and STEM education in K-12, from K all the way to 12, the North American system, and equivalent in Europe, I think is really important. I think the physics of data and AI is as such that it will completely gray out disciplines and how we know industries. If you look at industries, you have the finance sector, you have the insurance sector, you have the healthcare sector. Data is as such that all of these are going to come together. Do not be surprised if in 5 years you're going to see an athletic wear company that is also in the insurance space, because they can give you dynamic policies. Now, if you think about a university or a school structure, architecturally they are terrible. They are full of walls. They're like, oh, you want to be in humanities? You want to take a math course? You want to take a music course? You go to that room and you go to that room. I think if we want to bring that education to kids, this is what it means to your data, this is how you should share data, this is how trains are being modeled. An example of that is a project that came out of MIT called Scratch, that kids are now very interested to learn coding without really thinking about how compilers work or how JVMs work. We should do the same thing for AI, but we should not just think about the curriculum, we should think about architecture, we should think about productivity, interconnection of students to the workforce from kindergarten all the way to post-secondary education. And that may address some of the correct observations that you shared with us. Sorry.
I do want to add to it, because I think that brings up the point on the other side too. I think there's a reality of what the next generation will look like. I think AI will get incorporated into their education from the beginning, and they'll have to learn how to deal with it in a lot of different ways. So I think practically making sure that we have education systems that know that they can't ignore AI, they can't ban AI. They actually have to figure out how they make sure kids know how to work with it in a lot of different disciplines. That's the other side of that same equation. So it's not just making sure that they learn some of the underlying technology, but that they understand what it then means for whatever discipline they might be in, what they can do with it, what they can't. And you can give really practical examples, right? Somebody going into the workforce for the first time tries to write an email through ChatGPT and doesn't look at it, might lose their job when they write an email that isn't actually what is appropriate, right? So trying to make sure that's a component of education on both sides of that, I think, is important.
I'm just going to say very quickly, let's not forget, David said it, it's the data itself in the models that is, no one really talks about it that much. Is there an application perhaps for blockchain to actually be much more about a real use case of blockchain, about actually looking at the veracity of data, and do we know what's in those models and how can we track it and create that almost, maybe that is a ready-made use case for blockchain that we haven't really thought about yet. That's, I think we've got to think a lot more about the data and how we manage the data. As David said, rubbish in, rubbish out. We've seen that for many years. And the bias as well in that we've talked a bit about today. You know, let's not forget machine learning. There's been bias around for years. Think about mortgage applications and stuff. You know, we've seen that. So we can draw on some of the experience we have. But let's not forget the data is absolutely key. And how do we really make sure that we focus our attention on getting the right data in and ensuring that it's not manipulated for nefarious purposes?
Just very quickly on that point, I think in terms of education, our education in the United States is very generic. It is not focused on individual students. And with AI, you now have a chance to actually individualize, hyper-personalize education. So I think we need to focus education on individuals, individual lessons, not generic. Pretty much most of the, at least K to 12th grade, generic education, it doesn't do people any good. They're not going to be competitive in this digital AI age. We have to hyper-personalize to every student to understand their vulnerabilities, their abilities, their capabilities, and this is our future. If we do this, we have great success with AI, and capabilities are only going to grow over the years.
Thank you very much. And I think maybe our kids or future generation will don't even call it AI anymore because we'll be totally integrated in everything they do.